The golden mountain under my bed. What if becoming rich will bring suffering to you and others? He remembered those words from his vivid dream as he carried the golden necklace beneath his clothes. His 8-year-old sister, who walked with him, told him to rethink his actions and wait for Mom and Dad. But he was adamant. He told her he wanted to surprise them, give them money desperately needed for a better life, and move them out of their cursed apartment. Any day now, they will be evacuated into the streets. His parents were struggling to survive, let alone find another house. They were in dire need of money. He had grown up in a poor neighborhood, and they lived in an illegally built archaeological site that was now facing imminent demolition. The wealthy had other plans for it. What would a 12-year-old do? He prayed to God daily for help. The only thing he got was this disturbing sentence. So, should he be poor to prevent everybody's suffering? This was unfathomable. But what will he tell the goldsmith? That the floor under his bed collapsed into a tunnel. That's when he explored it, and he found an old graveyard. The interior was full of gold and jewelry. He will find something to say. They needed money badly, and God has answered his request. He sent them a golden mountain. Now they can live as rich as kings. For the first time, life smiled at him. He was weary of his impoverished existence, his ridicule at school, and the sight of privileged classmates flaunting their wealth. It all seemed so unjust. Now, he will go well-dressed, and his driver will park his luxurious car in front of the school, and they will envy him. He will be taking pictures of them with his expensive cell phone. He entered the goldsmith shop, followed by his wary sister. The shop was empty except for the old goldsmith. He walked shyly toward the man and presented the necklace. The boy said it was his mom's necklace and that he wanted to sell it. The goldsmith's face was shocked for 1 second, and then he reached under the table and pressed something. He smiled and looked at the necklace, asking the boy how much he wanted for it. Minutes passed as the older man talked back and forth, asking them about themselves. The boy felt uneasy, for he sensed something was wrong. 2 policemen entered the shop, an old officer and a young one. Their serious looks changed to surprise at the sight of 2 children. Confused, they asked the goldsmith what was wrong. The goldsmith said, "I have nothing to do with them. They brought me a piece of gold, so fine and rare that I had only seen one in the museum. For this craft is not of our age, and those children are from the slums. I needed to report this immediately." The officers looked at the necklace and then at the children. The officer took the boy's hand and pressed hard, asking him to confess. "Where did you steal this?" The boy was scared and told them everything about the tunnel and the golden stash at the end. The group, joined by the father and mother, went down the stairs and, to their surprise, found a room full of gold and jewelry. It was an ancient burial site that seemed to belong to an important person forgotten by time. The grave was full of pictures and inscriptions in a long-gone language. The boy looked around the room, puzzled, for every face looked different. His parents had panicked expressions. His sister was deathly white. The goldsmith had a greedy expression, and the older officer was thinking deeply. But the young officer had murder in his eyes. The older officer looked at him, and they shared a dangerous look as the boy's heart pounded. He didn't know why. The police officers and the goldsmith ran outside, pushing each other violently. They followed them outside, and then he saw his neighbor, an old and lovely lady, coming down the tunnel. He wanted to say hi, but she pushed him harshly to the side and ventured in. Then she came out shouting, "Gold! Gold! There is gold down there!" The boy and his family were trying to push outside. Everybody wanted to come in. A mob was occupying their house, and they were all moving forward to come in. The air felt heavy, and he felt nausea and nearly lost consciousness if it wasn't for his father, who carried him outside, who would faint and be crushed under the curious feet. When they reached outside, the neighborhood wondered what was going on. People gathered in large numbers. Some tried to go in, while others peered out of the windows and from the roofs. The family stood outside watching in horror while their house was being invaded and probably being robbed. They couldn't do anything. Then, 3 groups emerged in front of the house. The goldsmith with his family, all carrying weapons. The first officer, accompanied by all the shady folks of the neighborhood, and the older officer with a group of policemen. They stopped at the sight of each other, and an alarming silence controlled the street. The parents took their children and started running. The boy didn't understand why. So far, this had been a bad dream for him. Behind him, he heard the sound of violence, a horrid voice that made his hair stand on end, and his heartbeat. He heard that humans had lost their humanity and stolen each other's right to live. The sound didn't grow fainter with distance. For some odd reason, it grew stronger and stronger. While they were escaping, he saw others fleeing in horror all over the street. They were in luck since they had a head start. Others pushed each other, and the one who fell never stood again. He heard a loud sound, like one he had heard before on TV. It sounded like a building had collapsed. Did their building collapse? It was poorly built, like most of this neighborhood, and a disaster was waiting to happen. If that was so, what happened to everybody? Their neighbors, his best friend on the 3rd floor. He didn't want to think grim thoughts. Chaos took hold wherever they went, and people fled in every direction. They walked for hours and hours, and only his aching legs reminded him that he had to rest. His father pushed them, saying it was not safe and that they had to reach their grandparents' house outside the city. How long can fear push you? We all have limits, and they collapse on the city's outskirts. They saw the desert from afar, and then it hit them. They had to cross it. His parents argued in hushed tones, and his mother was furious. Against her wishes, his father left them. Moments later, they heard angry voices calling to catch the thief. From far away, a car raced toward them. When it stopped, his father was sweating and shouting to them to get in. They obeyed him without hesitation. The vehicle traveled across the desert while his father mumbled to himself, "May God forgive me," repeatedly. All were silent, for nobody wanted to disturb his father or his consciousness. "What have I done?" he asked himself. "My dad did the unthinkable and broke the law just because of my folly. But were there alternatives? To brave the desert with no food and water?" He looked at his father with deep respect, for this man was ready to do anything for his family, even if he broke the law he dearly held. When they reached their grandparents' house, their grandparents came rushing outside, worried. They heard that evil caused loss in the city and many innocent people's lives. The military intervened to no avail. When they reached their grandparents' house, their grandparents came rushing outside, worried. They heard that evil caused loss in the city and many innocent people's lives. The military intervened to no avail. The news said that a building collapsed, which may have sparked a riot that went out of control. The family kept quiet. The boy felt responsibility for all that had conspired, and he stayed silent during the day and cried at night. His parents tried to cheer him up, saying it wasn't his fault. He did what he thought was right, but there are things one can't predict. They don't understand, he was warned. His father managed to get his hands on some gold before they escaped, and he sold it discreetly in small amounts. They managed quietly to buy a house and get themselves out of poverty. They had enough for a few years. The boy wasn't happy even after he got everything he wanted. He didn't see people the same way again. Behind their happy and innocent eyes, he knew, lay dormant monsters. What do you think? Share it in the comment section below. Subscribe for more. Yours, the Counselor, SFTG.